Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, welcome to Endzone podcast. This is a podcast in which I discuss everything in football, whether it's on the field, off the field, reffing, GMs, coaches, and the ins and outs. I will be discussing them. Hence why it's called Endzone to Endzone, kind of like a football game being played from endzone to endzone. So today we have a few topics to discuss. Now, considering that it is off season, there really isn't much on-field football to talk about. But if we're talking about off the field, then this is where it's all at. Earlier this week, we were all notified by the great Rob Gronkowski, the New England Patriots tight end. He announced his retirement after a long thought process of whether he was going to retire or not. He finally has hung up the cleats, guys. He is no longer playing in the NFL. Now, this doesn't mean he can't come back, because we've seen guys retire and come back, leave the league and come back. So he can definitely still come back if he wants to. But I think everybody kind of, looks at it as he has had his fair share of injuries. So because of that, he wants to explore life after football. I mean, plus Gronk is a big time celebrity. He seems to be loved by everybody, and he has definitely attained some sort of acting gigs that have potentially knocked on his doors. So, this guy retiring at the age of 29 or 30, it's not too bad of a move, since most guys retire at the age, playing football, most guys retire at the age of 30 plus. Now, him being retired obviously comes into the fact of, is he the GOAT of tight ends? All right, not the GOAT of goats, but the GOAT of tight ends. Is he the best tight end to have ever played the game in comparison to other tight ends that have played before and maybe in the future? If you're just talking, about projection wise, Rob Gronkowski, if he continued to play, he could be the best in terms of pure statistics. He could. But considering he has now retired, he kind of can't, right? If he wants to, he can always come back. But if we're just putting perspective, right? So right now he's retired. So if you look at his career stats, everybody, he's pretty darn good. He's not the greatest, in terms of pure statistics. The guy's clocked, 521 receptions, almost 10,000 yards. And when I say almost, it's more like 3,000 away. 2,200 to be exact, right? Because he has, 521 receptions, 7,861 yards, and 79 touchdowns, which is pretty good. He has an average of 15 yards per catch. That's really good for a tight end, because most of the time the tight ends are being used for red zone. Most of the times, if not red zone, then they're just being used to gain the tough yards. And for a guy like Rob Gronkowski to get a 15-yard average as a tight end, which most receivers, get. And when I say most, I mean like 90%, right? Because only like the 10% of receivers that go to the Hall of Fame, put up monster averages. And this guy's putting in 15-yard averages. He's if you look at it in every single season, he's never had a season that he clocked less than 10 yards. His lowest was his first season with the Patriots, and he got 13 yards. So he's been a very good, if not very, very great tight end since the day he's come in for what he's been asked to do for the Patriots organization. And when we're talking about, he started off being in a 2 tight end system, so he wasn't the main weapon. He was part of a weapon. He eventually turned into the main weapon, and then, on his back end of his career, he's turned into kind of like what Shannon Sharp turned into. Everybody, if you know football, you know the phrase "big play Shay," right? Which is when Shannon Sharp, on his last years, with the Ravens, he would make one play throughout an entire game, one catch or whatever, but it'd be like the big play that will make the changing play. So Gronkowski kind of turned into that in his final 2 years-ish. He would put numbers, but he was clutch. And I think that's one thing that Rob Gronkowski had throughout his career was he always, he make, the big catch all the time? No, of course not. Nobody makes the big moment all the time. It's almost impossible to do that. But when you look at overall throughout an entire career, Gronk has made more clutch plays than he's not made clutch plays. The most recent one we could think of is this past Super Bowl, in which he made the play against the Rams that put the Patriots in the red zone to take the lead, to put the lead out, right? To take the lead and stretch it out to the point where the Rams were not going to be able to catch up. And he did that. Tom Brady threw the ball, just threw it deep, and Gronk had to beat 2 guys, and he reached out, dove for the ball, and caught it. And that was, the play for that Super Bowl. People are going to remember, that Super Bowl win of the Patriots over the Rams last year as the play that won the game, because he made that turnover. He made that catch. That was the catch, right? Whenever we talk about Super Bowls, we always talk about, the catch and stuff, and that was the catch for the Patriots in that, and with this past season. Now, again, is he the GOAT? Because that's what we all talk about, right? We all talk about GOAT. Brady's the GOAT, Jordan's the GOAT, blah 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 is the GOAT. Well, even in every sport, there's categories, right? So is Gronk the GOAT of all tight ends? And if you just look at his achievements, if you look at it, he is a 5-time Pro Bowler, 4-time NFL All-Pro, 3-time Super Bowl champ. He was the 2014 All-Pro Comeback Player of the Year, and he was also the 2014 Pro Football Writers of America's Comeback Player of the Year. So this guy's got a lot of, glory and a lot of trophies, I guess, right, behind him. He also is one of the best statistical tight ends to have ever played this game. Now, I understand he didn't get 10,000 receiving yards, and that definitely comes from the fact that he had multiple seasons in which he didn't play the full season. I mean, he actually, missed out a lot of playing time. The Gronk never played full 16 season other than his first 2 as a young man. So he wasn't the most durable guy, but when Gronk was in, he was in, and he made a difference, and he played, and you had to account for him. That was the most important part about Gronk, was he didn't just play the game, but he was a very, very effective weapon for the Patriots. I mean, everybody knew the ball's going to Gronk, but somehow he always got it, right? So you got to be great to be able to do that. And having 5 Pro Bowls in a career that spanned from 2010 to 2018, that's just like 9 years, 8 to 9 years. And he was able to almost get 10,000 yards, almost 100 touchdowns. Now, when I say 100, I mean, when I say almost, I'm kind of stretching it, but still, it's getting there, And for 5 of those years, he went to the Pro Bowl 4 times. Was listed as first team All Pro. You got to be doing something right. Most tight ends are playing and they're super duper deep into their careers. I'm saying that, I mean, like, Antonio Gates is still playing. Antonio Gates, I understand Antonio Gates is far ahead, but Antonio Gates has also played far much longer. So it's just one of those things. So now, to say that Gronk is the GOAT of tight ends, that depends. Now, some people say, well, he put these numbers in a shorter time span than those guys. If you gave him the ability to play till 37, he'd be monstrous. Sorry, guys, but he didn't. Part of being the GOAT is longevity. That's why people say stuff like Tom is the GOAT. Not just because he's won that many. Not just because he keeps being an elite quarterback, playing as efficient as he does, but because he keeps doing it at the age and the longevity that he's doing it. People don't talk about great athletes because they put up monster numbers in short amount of years. No. People talk about, part of being great is being able to play. And I truly believe the way the trend of Gronk's body, the way that he's been playing lately, as of like 3 to 4 years, the guy wasn't going to last much longer. His body wasn't able to hold itself because Gronk was all about contact. Gronk didn't shy away from contact, and that really hurt him as the years accumulated. He's played 10 years, 9, right? 9, and his body is like a running back's body. He played 9 years, but he's been beat up so bad. Get this, like, he hasn't played a full season since his second year as a pro. Like, that's crazy if you just think about it. So every time he's been in, sure, he's been very effective, but that doesn't mean that he is the GOAT just because he put up monster numbers in a short time span. Because who knows what would have happened if he came back next year and put up garbage numbers. Then people will look and say, well, you know what? 10 years and he only has these numbers. That's not too good. So we have to look at it from that perspective, guys. If you just look at pure statistics, he's not even near Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez has 15,000 yards, 111 touchdowns. Shannon Sharp has 10,000 yards, 62 touchdowns. Antonio Gates has 11,800 yards, 116 touchdowns. So Gronk, he's not even near those numbers. Totals, right? Now, I get it. His average is higher. But we all know math, guys. Come on. The longer you go, the more the numbers. If he doesn't consistently put up higher numbers than what it is already there, it's just going to go down. Like, in order for Gronk to have a higher average, he literally, next year, he would have to put up 15.2 yards per catch. That's crazy. To me, I'm sorry. he's not the GOAT. He's not the GOAT of tight ends. The GOAT of tight ends to me is Tony Gonzalez. To be able to play as long as Tony Gonzalez did and be as effective as he was, that proves to me that he is the GOAT. Even still, to his final season, Tony Gonzalez had 83 receptions, 859 yards, and 8 touchdowns. The guy literally could played. That's how good he was. He just retired early because he was done with the game. And in that final season, he played 15 games. Started 15 games. He averaged 12.4 yards. Tony Gonzalez averaged 10.3 yards. Tony Gonzalez played all the games. Like Tony Gonzalez's career, not only was the guy great, the guy was freaking durable. He almost played every game of his career. Like, that's badass. So, I'm sorry, but to me, Tony Gonzalez is the GOAT. He's the GOAT of all tight ends. And it is going to depend on how Tony Gates' career ends for me to determine that. But if you're really just looking at how Tony Gates' career has been going, he literally is there because he wants to win a ring, guys. Gates isn't playing anymore because he knows he's effective. He's playing because he wants to win a ring, and he wants to do it with his quarterback. Pretty much no numbers, but he's still playing. That's why I look at Tony Gonzalez as he's the GOAT of all tight ends. Because Tony Gonzalez and like Shannon Sharp, they left and they were still effective. And I get it. Gronk still too. But you see, from those two guys, they weren't battling. They weren't dying with injuries. They weren't having injury problems, worrying about another crack here and there. And they were playing during an era where defenders were allowed to hit. And you just look at Gronk and the way his career is, next season he probably wouldn't even have good numbers. So that's why I look and I say, no, Gronk is top 5 tight ends, but he's not the GOAT. The GOAT is Tony Gonzalez. And that's a wrap, because in order for another tight end to be considered the GOAT, you got to be able to beat Tony G's numbers, all right? That fool's got receiver numbers. So, congrats to Gronk on retiring on his own. Congrats to Gronk on his success in the NFL and his post-success, because I know the guy's going to be very successful post-NFL. So, on to the next topic, which is the newly proposed onside kick rule that just recently got proposed, which is going to go on to the list of the multiple things that the NFL owners and executives are going to be voting on. So every year after every season, the NFL executives, they have this meeting in which they vote in new rules or amendments to rules, and so. So one of the rules that they decided to vote on this year, they proposed it as a new onside kick rule, which is kind of being dubbed as the 4th and 15th rule. But pretty much the way this rule is going to work is that in every game during the fourth quarter, each team has one opportunity to forego an onside kick and instead do a 4th and 15th. So this 4th and 15th will be set on the team's own 35-yard line. And if they succeed, then it's automatic first down for them. And if they fail, then it's automatic turnover on downs. The only bad thing, though, is that from what I've been reading, is there is no notion about the failing part, whether it's going to be still on the 35-yard line, or if it's just some kind of in between the possessions type of idea. So what I mean is, if they fail, are they still gonna continue on the 35-yard line? because you know, think about it, that's a big gamble. If you fail, the other team's immediately on the 35-yard line. That's done deal. That's an automatic field goal, and everybody knows how based off this past season, that every point freaking matters. So obviously, this proposed rule only got one vote of no, which is from John Mara, which is the Giants owner. But so far, the other owners seem to either like it or either have no problem with it. I personally don't have a problem with it. It doesn't seem to be such a bad rule. It just seems to be a nice little addition, because at the end of the day, you can choose to do that rather than an onside kick. So they're not essentially saying that they're taking away the onside kick, but rather they're just giving you that option if you want to. It's so I don't seem to have a problem with it, because they're not really saying, no more onside kicks. No, they're just saying if you want to, you can do it for a 4th and 15th, which the chances of succeeding a 4th and 15th on your own 35, right? So the pressure is even higher in comparison to the onside kick. Is roughly about the same, especially now how they changed the new onside kick rule, meaning being that the players can't start running until the ball is actually kicked. I think that rule is gonna pass, just simply because the owners look at it as, why not? It's kind of like a why not rule. No, like if someone does it and succeeds, chances are someone's also gonna do it and fail. So ultimately, it's gonna make no difference. They're just trying to add things to push the game forward. That's really the whole point of it. Plus, if you propose it, then there can be amendments made to it that will improve that proposed rule. So it might lead to something even better. Now, we all know that in 1 month from now, the big NFL draft is going to happen. That is pretty much where a lot of teams are either going to get their future, or they're going to just get future suffering. So I remember earlier this week I was listening to a few podcasts and stuff and a few shows, and I remember specifically about something that his name is Colin Cowherd. And I'm pretty sure you guys all know who he is. The host, MC, the guy that does the show, The Herd. So Colin Cowherd had said in one of his talks that the NFL draft doesn't really matter, because it doesn't really push it. One player from the NFL draft doesn't really change the future of teams, which I think he's entirely freaking wrong about that. That's the most crazy thing you can possibly say, because I think Tom Brady's kind of proof of that. I mean, if you look and say, well, if the Patriots didn't draft Tom Brady, I'm sure the Patriots would be in a different position they are today. So the NFL draft matters. It matters a whole lot, and matter of fact, it matters more than free agency signings, because there have been multiple teams who have signed players, a mass amount of players in the free agency, and have not succeeded. And there are a mass amount of teams who have drafted the guys that brought them success, a la the 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Oakland Raiders, and even the New England Patriots. So this whole notion about that Colin decided to say, right, because I like to pay attention to little things, and he kind of just said that really quickly. I caught it, and I was just like, no, this is the dumbest thing, is that the NFL draft matters. It matters a whole lot. Teams if you look at teams like the Chargers, who a year ago, before they drafted Derwin James, they were a totally different team. People were not afraid of attacking them in the middle or in the semi-deep area. And just by having that one guy that they drafted, Derwin James, it changed the entire outlook for that defense. It really did. It made them look completely different, and they played with a different swag than they had before. Again, the Patriots. If the Patriots never draft Tom Brady, I don't think their dynasty would ever happen. You can't tell me that they could just plug anybody because of Bill Belichick. Because, I'm a big believer that systems work. But 100%, a system cannot be the only reason why a team succeeds. You have to have the right players to play that system. And I believe that, Bill Belichick drafting Tom Brady, holding 4 quarterback slots, literally is the reason the Patriots succeeded today. So the draft matters. Now, we all know the draft's going to be happening in about a month or so. It's getting pretty close. And it's going to be another exciting event. I don't think it will be as exciting as last year's, because last year obviously had 4 quarterbacks. And plus this year they're really the quarterback picks aren't really that strong. Really, with only 2 standout quarterbacks, while the others, they just make cases for them, but really only 2, being Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins. So we have to in this draft, there's going to be a lot of defensive players, and there's a lot of teams who have their quarterbacks and aren't really looking for quarterbacks. So I don't expect a lot of quarterbacks to get drafted in the first round, but rather a lot of defensive players and a lot of skill positions getting drafted, because there's a lot of teams right now that have their quarterback they want to go with, and rather they just want to look for skill positions. So, and if they have a quarterback that is not like at the peak level, they either try to get rid of him or find someone better. But there are many teams who are like, we're good with our quarterback. Let's just get skill positions to help the quarterback out. So I think that this draft is going to be exciting in terms of the skilled guys. And there's a few standouts, but there really isn't any like, oh my God, this guy's definitely number one. That type of deal. I get it that there's a guy like Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa's younger brother, coming out to the draft, but he didn't play at all. And you know what they always say about players is that the best way to get yourself ready for football is to play football. And the fact that he took pretty much an entire year off, that can hurt his ability to play, because what might happen is he comes in, plays, and gets hurt, busts a knee or something because he didn't play football at all, and cause him to lose out a whole season, and that could change everything for a player. So it's kind of a risk, but really, I mean, everyone's kind of agreeing that Kyler Murray's going to be going 1, but we're going to get to see how this draft goes. I think that this draft's going to have probably a lot of trading up. That's what I feel about this draft. But I hope that a quarterback is drafted number 1, just like last year with Baker Mayfield, so that it kind of like spices things up. Because what I've noticed is when all the quarterbacks start going fast, things get crazy. They need to, like, when you make it about the quarterbacks, the draft gets really crazy and people start doing crazy things. So that's what makes it exciting. So I really hope that this draft literally starts off with Kyler Murray getting drafted to the Cardinals. That's a wrap. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Endzone to Endzone, and keep looking out at the NFL, because I will, guys. So see you guys again.